Tara Brown and the Swinging London Colour Revolution by Vic Jenham, Chapter 14, Part 2. Weaning off the idea that I was Tara, father of two little boys, leading light of once swinging London, an honourable with pedigree and money behind him, was indeed the hardest. It was the destruction of personality I had feared Paul would have to go through. Everything I believed I suddenly was no more. I wasn't even allowed to miss my family. Little by little, I had to learn to forget them. I knew they were somewhere, and I liked to think the boys were doing fine, yet they wouldn't know about my feelings because I was dead. I had read that phrase a bit too often those first years after my disappearance to maintain anyone might be thinking differently. The Honourable Tara Brown, who left our realm prematurely, who died much too young, who was tragically taken away in a traffic accident, who blew his mind out in a car. Of course, I could keep the memory alive, but for whom apart from myself? Forget about your past, Kumi suggested. You're dug now. You've got everything going for you to be happy. She was right, superficially seen. But this book bears witness of the fact I couldn't simply erase the reality there were people who occasionally must still be thinking of Tara, the one they had known. Pretending I wasn't Tara any longer felt like I had never been him. I guess that was too much for me. So, against advice, I kept thinking of my family a lot. I was Doug and Tara at the same time, because I could do that. I later learned the boys were doing fine, and indeed they have grown into men I am immensely proud of. I don't care if their father means little to them. They do a lot to me. Mummy Darling died at 85, an age I am slowly closing in on. It had always been hard to outdo her, and I wonder if I will this time. Well, there's still a good few years to go to find out. Nikki died before me. She had gone back to Spain and managed to build a life there. I hope she was happy. It was quite impossible to obtain trustworthy information on her. When I heard her ashes had, in accordance with her wishes, been shattered over Loch Tay, I shed tears of joy. Whatever happened since our divorce, we had been together almost 5 of the most impactful years of our lives, and nothing was going to take that away from us. I am not going to give you the lowdown on the last 30 years, or 50. You know them. You can Google them. I'm not going to spill any sweat on giving you second-hand information. Yet there is this one thing I want to get off my chest. On one of our last sessions, I told Vic, I need you to do me a favor. I have this message I want to leave the reader with. Now, I know I've always been comfortable and cannot be considered a trustworthy informant on societal woes. I appreciate that axioma. Also, as an island dweller, I'm not automatically the turn-to guy on the latest fashions. Fair enough. But closing in on 80, I must say that age is putting life in a whole new perspective. I don't feel comfortable at all anymore. I am way too excited about continuing living. So I feel I have a point. Maybe my story has been nothing but an excuse to get to this point. Perhaps my whole life has. It is said life is about the road, not the destiny. But when you are closing in on the end of the road, you are left with an awful lot of destiny. I can tell you that. At the same time, I don't want to sound like an old sod. I don't want readers to shrug and think, okay, boomer. So whatever I am going to say next, I want you to think well about how you are going to write it down. Make it digestible. Can I trust you on this? Vic Janum, by now a good friend, smiled. Of course, dear Tara. I have all the while tried to make you sound excellent. I know you have. Now listen, despite our technological advancement, or perhaps because of it, most people of age are aware we have been on a downward trajectory ever since that post-war high that destiny allowed me to live through. Remember what I said early on? That the whole 60s movement was a psychological operation. Did I use that phrase? I believe you called it social engineering, which is the better term, in fact. Anyway, the idea of the 60s was to get rid of the 50s, of family life in particular. The generation gap would atomize society, the theory went. And once atomized, many people would lose their moral compass and embrace any wild idea other people were embracing as well, especially when promoted by contemporaries. Entertainment, of course, plays a fundamental role in all this. As I was saying, people without a moral compass will do anything they can get away with and will only stop when they are confronted with the immediate and severe consequences of their behavior, in the form of fines and loss of status. If that is the case, all you need to do is tighten your rules and you can make people do exactly as you want them to. Most people by now must understand they cannot trust their authorities any longer. Yet they also know they are helpless in the face of the financial and military power the elites have amassed. You can see this in the streets of Europe on an almost daily basis. If you protest some inarticulate notion of social improvement in the form of a gay pride parade or an Extinction Rebellion sit-in or a Black Lives Matter demonstration, police will leave you in peace and may even actively help you, while the press will report on your demands favorably. But raise a contentious point of serious critique, as the Yellow Vests try to do in France, and you will be blown off the streets with extreme force and aggression, and the media will call you a terrorist. This is all the consequence of the great project I helped initiate some 60 years ago. I am not sure if I should be proud of this, as I do not really like the results we are seeing today. But it is as it is. Most of the people who happily helped dethrone the family simply wanted to break free from what they felt were old-fashioned constraints that no longer fitted their growing financial and spiritual awareness. They certainly did not mean to get themselves and their children ready for the kind of tyranny we are now facing and which will be 100 times worse than the cruelest family father's rule. We were innocent. We were naive. We were thanks to the baby boom with many. It was simply too easy to follow the lead of me and my ilk and too difficult to resist our call. So sorry. We had so much fun messing up your future, we just couldn't stop. We thought we had time left to grow up, but that turned out to be untrue. So here we are.